We now have to move on to our next panel discussion. But before we move on to our next panel discussion, here's a video from our partner Autodesk. So can we have the video, please?
Your work changes the map. To achieve success, you need an integrated set of tools that lets you coordinate work across teams, from design to construction. With the AEC collection, every designer, engineer, and contractor has access to multidisciplinary workflows that let them create with ease. Explore what's possible and build with confidence. To deliver high-performing buildings and infrastructure that transform lives and communities.
So ladies and gentlemen, next up, we have an interesting session powered by Autodesk on understanding BIM challenges in planning and design. Introducing the session moderator and panelists, please welcome our session moderator, Mr. Nikhil Bagalkotkar, APAC Technical Head, AEC Business, Autodesk. Mr. Bagalkotkar specializes in assisting organizations conceptualize, design, and execute transformational projects backed by technology. His career in the technology sector has enabled him to architect solutions around information management, workspace reinvention, future of design, and digital transformation. Thank you for joining us today. And here's introducing and welcoming our panelists who would be joining him for this discussion. Please welcome Mr. Navneet Aron, founder and CEO, Livio Building System. He has been involved in solving the age-old problems in real estate development and construction with modern technology to enable a cheaper, better, and faster approach. Mr. Rupesh, Gujarathi, Director, Electro-mech India. He has over 27 years of experience in building engineering design, MEPF, and sustainable built environment in the field of infrastructure, industrial, and architectural projects. He has also worked on many green building projects and has a vast experience in retrofitting services for existing buildings. Dr. Rajendra, Hiremath, Managing Director, Synergy Infrasys. He has over 25 years of experience in finance and administration and has been engaged in infrastructure projects with 500 crore top line. He is a consultant to Government of Maharashtra on matters pertaining to BOT and HAM projects. And Mr. Sandeep Roy, Head Design, AIPL. He has over 27 years of experience, of which over 18 years is in the business leadership position in the AEC industry. He has been instrumental in establishing and managing design, development, project management, and construction companies, along with numerous landmark projects. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. Mr. Bagalkotkar, requesting you to take the discussion further. We have 40 minutes for the discussion, and we look forward to an engaging one. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Riyal. I hope everybody who's attending the session is feeling all right. Everything's fine at home, and you're on the brighter side of things as far as the current COVID crisis is concerned. So over the next 45 odd minutes, we'll be delving through some very, very interesting topics, something that's been affecting the industry as a whole. And through the thought leaders that we have on our panel today, we'll try and get more insights as to how they've been able to traverse this journey and what the results have been for them. So let me kick things off and ask the first question to Mr. Navneet Aron. So Navneet, you've been through the BIM journey, moving from CAD to BIM, and your organization has done some fantastic work around BIM as a technology. How did you manage this entire transition to BIM, to connected BIM, and now you're even exploring optioneering and site updates and all sorts of amazing things that your organization is doing? How has the transition been? How did you manage the transition, and what were the learnings from the process for you?
Thank you, Nikhil, for that question, and welcome everybody to the conference and the session. I wouldn't say it's an easy journey by any means. We were traditionally an AutoCAD shop where everything was two-dimensional pen and paper, historically speaking. As we, so we come from a real estate development background here in the US. I'm actually dialing in from California right now. It's 3:40 a.m. in the morning, but proud to be here and I'm thankful to be here. So as we started to, we coming from the development roots, most of the setup, most of the consultants in the industry still remains in the US on AutoCAD and just in general on 2D plans. And our goal as we brought in construction in-house and launched Livio Building Systems was to become an extremely efficient general contractor and using historical analysis from the software industry, we wanted to take advantage of several factors within India, and we have a pretty large base in India right now. We have about 100 employees in India, and we're a very strong BIM shop. So this transition was self-driven in order to become more efficient and bringing initially just simple ideas, but then working on systematically more and more advanced concepts. Today we are from a design all the way through permitting and engineering all the way to construction on field. We do everything in-house. Our engineers do it in-house in India, and we have several engineering firms who are partners here in the US who sign off on those plans, etc. And all of the models that we create are extremely rich and available to our subcontractors and anybody else who's part of our process, including customers using AR methods and tools for visualization, etc. So I wouldn't say it's been an easy journey in terms of learning. It's been the biggest learnings I would say are how do you apply the right method or the right tool? How do you identify the right tool? Because there are so many new techniques and tools out there every single day. How do you select the specific ones which have the best ROI? Because these are expensive, expensive pieces of software. So that, I would say that's been the number one. And second, just the training that is needed to bring your team alongside to keep up with it. So yeah, with that, I would have back over to you, Nikhil.
Thank you so much, Navneet. Great insight. Start small, grow, move towards a rich design, and then the most important part of the mix is getting the right tools in at the right time to enable your teams to do it. So thank you. Great insights, Navneet. I'll ask the next question to Mr. Rupesh. And Mr. Rupesh today represents an organization that sits at the cusp of multiple streams, with buildings kind of taking on more automation. Some might argue that today buildings are a mix of not just civil engineering, but also mechanical, electrical disciplines, and the other two components are increasing in complexity as we move along. So one part, with BIM being the de facto standard in this space, how can technology, Mr. Rupesh, play a role in terms of smoothing out the interplay between these various disciplines and ensuring that the coordination on as far as the development and construction of the building is concerned is seamless?
Mr. Nikhil, I think Mr. Rupesh has just joined in. Mr. Rupesh, can you hear us?
I'm actually, fortunately, I have to travel, so I'm actually on the way. Sorry, my network was a little weak in between, so I could not. I'm joined back. Yeah, please go ahead.
Perfect. Now, Mr. Nikhil, if you could just repeat your question once again for him.
So,
sorry, actually, I missed. So I'm traveling actually. Yeah, please go ahead.
So, Mr. Rupesh, the question was that with civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering kind of combining in the buildings of the future, where we're trying to get more and more automation in place, how do you see the interplay of these roles really coming together to help in the construction and the design space?
Well, so when statistically we used to work on 2D AutoCAD, and then apparently now we started working on BIM, Revit. Then, of course, see, with since we are working on number of projects, and then we have seen the value of BIM modeling, because wherever the complicated projects are there, we are started using the BIM models, and it is really helpful for the designers, for the people who are executing the project. So it is something like start to end solution what we get on BIM modeling now. And with respect to various tools available, like majorly what we call the shop floor drawing, then class detection, it is very helpful for everyone. And I generally feel that the construction industry is moving towards this trend now slowly. Most of the big developers, architects are now asking the drawings in 3D. So I feel it will be more helpful further and further, and it is very useful for us as of now. Being we are the services consultant, we worked on different disciplines like electrical, mechanical, then firefighting, and then HVAC. So detection is very important, which we sort out even before it goes on the floor. So it really helpful us, right, as of now. And second, as far as the documentation is concerned, as far as my budgets are concerned, because of the quantity takeoffs, those are very easy because of on the BIM model. After the class detection, what generally we worked out on the quantities manually. Now it's based on the software base. So it's my budgets are getting locked at particular value. So variation is hardly any comes till end of the project. So yes, this is very useful, and this is what I think construction industry is moving at slowly.
Thank you, Rupesh. You spoke about quantity takeoffs and how class detection and those can help smooth out the interplay between various disciplines, like you rightly mentioned. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll address the next question to Mr. Sandeep. And Mr. Sandeep, your organization has been in business over the last 30 years, and that's a very, very rich experience where you've seen technologies, tools evolve. I'm not wearing an Autodesk badge for the time being, this has had an impact not just on the retail space, the commercial space, but the residential space as well. So from a business standpoint, if you were to look at the evolution of technology, what are the 2-3 areas where technology has helped your business in terms of profitability, top line, bottom line, acquiring customers, things like that?
Thank you, Nikhil, and thank you, everybody. Am I audible? I hope. I'm also not at my pace. I'm somewhere vacationing, but this was a very interesting topic, so I joined in. The thing is, see, in this elite panel, it seems that I'm the one who least knows about BIM. I represent a developer company. We are the consumer of the output. We are neither the creator of the input nor the creator of the output. My consultants does that, but we are a consumer of the output. And personally, I have seen a transformation in the industry from manual drawings. Literally, I mean, when I'm an architect as a background, throughout my 5 years of course, and about 1 year of the 2 years of post-graduation, we were actually drawing by hand. I've seen that transformation going into AutoCAD, AutoCAD 2D, to some extent AutoCAD 3D, and I have always embraced, and now we are seeing a transformation to Revit. About 10 years back, when I first got introduced to BIM, be it Revit or be it Bentley, I'm also involved with some of the institutions who are pretty much platform neutral. But when you talk of BIM, I strongly believe that it's future. And about a year back in our company, we took a very, very interesting decision, which has been almost in parallel to the whole COVID situation. Luckily, we got the time because there was a little sluggishness in the construction side of things, that you did not have to keep up with it, and you could get your home organized. And we decided as a company that we will convert ourselves into a 100% BIM compliant company in the next 1 year. And we are pretty much on course with that. We took about 6 months, and somebody mentioned, I think Navneet mentioned, that the softwares are expensive, the hardware upgrades are even more expensive, the trainings are not that expensive, but it comes in. But frankly speaking, in a developer company, I don't need to train everybody to be a great Revit draftsman or a draftsperson. We need them to check the drawings in terms of 2-3 things. So that brings me to the crux of where we are in terms of from a developer point of view with respect to BIM. We realize that we are literally being flattened by two things. Number one, that our quantities were all over the place. And with the projects going as complex as it is today, and AIPL is in some serious complicated mixed use projects where a simple tower will have everything between hospitality, offices, retail, multiplexes, and everything is a project by itself. I mean, every 3 floors is kind of a project by itself. It was impossible. I mean, you cannot blame the consultants, but it's impossible to get your quantities right. And we were getting flattened by those deviations. We were seriously being wrong because, you know, if we go out and get funding, be it debt or be it equity, there's a cost of funding, blah, 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 and getting wrong in your quantities. And by virtue of that on your budgets and estimate was killing us a lot. The other part is actually coordinated design. I mean, the thing is that when you start coordinating at site in these kind of complicated projects, you are losing time. You are losing time, you are losing, and time has a strong value for us. I mean, I have moved from a consultant background where I come from. I mean, almost 25 of my 30 years is in a consultant background. And I'm only recently in developer background. In a consultant background, we were very, very careful about the cost of time because it was what we were earning out of. However, when you come to a developer, the cost of time is not the cost of your person. It is the cost of the loss of rental. And that is probably 6 times the cost of the person. Okay. So these were the 2 key issues which we realized that was happening, that we were going all over the place in terms of quantities, and we were losing times because the drawings were not 100% coordinated, and we had to stop work, get consultants who were out of station sometime, who were busy with other brands sometime, blah, 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 get them to see the thing and then start doing some ad hoc jobs with a lot of implications. So we put, with these 2 primary objectives, we rolled out this whole company-wide objective to turn into a BIM. In about 6 months, our background work was over. The last 6 months, we have been putting it into practice with some test pilots, with some pilot projects, and they are actually, somebody talked about ROIs. They are actually paying back. They're actually, I think I'm very, very optimistic that even in a pure terms of ROIs of the error that we were making, and therefore the cost of financing or the cost of time that I spoke about, it will be easily overcome. Now, we are approaching this in 2 terms. In the pilot projects, yes, we were dependent on a third-party BIM consultant, but we are also encouraging our ecosystem of all the consultants, be it the architects, be it the structural consultant. And I'm sorry, I mean, some of you are third-party BIM consultants. Just to put it that I am a great believer in BIM as a native tool, and not revitization has become a verb. That you do drawings in AutoCAD, then you pass it on, then you revitize it or you BIMize it, or whichever way you look at it. But I am a great believer, and I have executed this in my previous companies also, that the best application of BIM is if you do it natively. You have to start on A0, and therefore your entire ecosystem of architects, engineers, and MEP consultants, and even I'm going down to the signage consultants these days, because it's very important that about headrooms, we are in such tight conditions in basements that my headrooms get spoiled. The signages are up there in the basement with no lights getting into there, and we are very, very interestingly solving it nowadays. I'm getting more and more convinced that there is a ROI case to what we are spending on. Thank you, Nikhil. I hope I have answered.
That was an amazing articulation. You talked about 100% BIM right from the start. And what really stood out was you used the downtime during the initial few months of COVID to really scale up on BIM. And that's such a good use of the resources that you had at hand. And you also spoke a little bit about how you have been able to use BIM for accurate budgeting, and by virtue of accurate budgeting, also saving a lot on the money impact of time. So thank you, Sandeep, for sharing that insight. Really, really insightful. Next question, if I may ask Mr. Rajendra, and Mr. Rajendra here represents green tech amongst all of us. So green tech is here to stay with UN SDG goals, which is the Sustainable Development Goals that have been highlighted, and as well as the GRIHA guidelines around clean energy, energy efficiency, clean water, water management. Going forward, it's expected that sustainability is going to be one of the big decision-making factors in the design process. So today, wherever sustainability plays a role, it's going to only increase in terms of importance. With your experience in this space, can you share a viewpoint on how to design, build, and even operate large-scale green projects profitably? Because profitability somehow gets missed out when you're talking about green, but I've understood that it's no longer the case. Can you throw some light, Mr. Rajendra, on that?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Actually, I am not from the building side, real estate side. I am associated with infrastructure development projects like roads, dams, canals, bridges. And as we all know that infrastructure development is the key driver for growth of any country's economy. Recently, for last almost 15-20 years, government has been spending on infrastructure projects on a huge scale, and it has also involved the private sector players in the form of BOT, that is build, operate and transfer, or DBFOT, that is PPP model, and recently the hybrid annuity models where the private sector players can invest some money as well as they can put in their management and executive skills. So infrastructure obviously plays a very, very important role in the economic development of our country. However, what we have seen is for over the years, the infrastructure development has been at the cost of some destruction. So sustainability was not thought of when this infrastructure development was begun. And we have seen that a lot of destructions have been done during the course of this infrastructure development. So when we, in the present era, when we go for any infrastructure development project, the first criteria which is looked at is the life cycle framework. That is the most important factor on which the design is based on. So once the life cycle structure is known, then the design becomes little easy, and on that basis we can design. We can have the design which is sustainable as well as cost effective. That means which is profitable. So when we start any infrastructure project, I think the first and foremost thing we do is the survey of the project site. And while we survey that project site, we capture a lot of data so that the design can be based on the data that has been collected during the course of this project development, design development. So once this is done, I think this survey facilitates the design structure based on the availability of material, strata, and a lot many things. The present era, even the client, that is the government side, also is keen to have a sustainable development which will protect the biodiversity of the road alongside, as well as it will reduce the pollution also. And this can be done, or this has been done to a certain extent by various alternatives like choice of material. That is, you can think of using alternative materials. Like, we must be knowing that our NHI, National Highway Authority India's Minister, Mr. Nikhil Bagalkotkar, recently told that 703 kilometers of roads were built by using the waste plastic. So kind of innovation. has been done. Plastic which is not decomposed, that has been used for construction of roads, and this is a very good example of how we can have a sustainable road which can have also a cost reduction as far as maintenance is concerned. Then we are also using alternative fuels for running our equipments, like we have solar power which has been used for our crushers and various construction equipments we are using. And alternative fuels have also been in use, like ethanol blended fuels and all that, which will create less pollution and which can be cost effective also. Then recycle and reuse of materials has also been done so that the projects become more and more profitable. Water conservation has been one of the most important factors that has been considered while we design, because these projects, they require a huge amount of water. So where there is a possibility to reuse the water, treat the water and reuse that. So water conservation has also been one of the most important factors while designing. And nowadays the client themselves specify that you should plant so many trees alongside the road. If you cut one tree, you have to plant 30 trees, and that is also been rigorously implemented, and that saves the road from early destruction, and maintenance cost is also reduced, and environment protection is also done. So overall, there has been impact, or there has been a consideration as far as designing of the EPC projects or road projects is concerned. An attempt is being made to reduce the consumption of land, energy, water, as well as the materials like minerals, which are getting scarce and scarce day by day. So that is how we in our company have been doing the design part, so that that project becomes sustainable as well as it becomes a profitable one. Thank you, Mr. Nikhil.
Such a fantastic response, Mr. Rajendra. You spoke about how you're conserving water during the process of the construction, but more importantly, right from site selection to grading, and how you're doing all of that using minimal disturbance to the biodiversity where the project is being executed. If I may ask another follow-up question. So clean tech, infra are generally segments quite closely associated with having a huge impact on the environment, as you rightly pointed out. If I were to ask you to paint a long-term picture of clean tech in terms of the infrastructure space, when you're talking about roads, railways, highways, even utilities as a whole, or even water, wastewater management, what would the future look like? Let's say 5 years down the line, with the entire national infrastructure pipeline in place, huge amount of investment, huge impetus to try new things. With your experience, the amount of work that you've done, if you were to paint, let's say, a picture of how the space would look like 10 years down the line, how would you kind of paint that picture?
I think the process has begun to have a sustainable and environment-friendly infrastructure. And in that, now the client side, I mean, government is also very serious while they frame the tender documents. And in all these infrastructure projects, the major cost is on power and fuel, because all construction equipments use huge amount of fuel, and that is where a lot of pollution is created, and fuel is costly also, and it is also costing us the exchange, because entire 85% of the fuel is imported, so that is costing us a large amount as far as our foreign exchange reserves are concerned. So I think power and renewable energy, power, fuel and renewable energy is going to play a huge role in all these infrastructure development projects in the coming years, which has already started, I would say. Then in renewable segment, we have photovoltaic, we have thermal energy, as well as we have wind energy. Now, if you look at the various corporate giants and their investments in the renewable power segment, Reliance has planned almost 60,000 crores of investment in photovoltaic solar power. Tatas have already acquired a well-spun project of 9,250 crores. So huge amount of investment has been made in power sector, particularly in renewable energy, which is a green energy, as we all know. And government of India has planned almost 175 gigawatt of power generation through solar by 2022. So this clearly indicates that yes, we are going towards clean energy and clean projects which are sustainable and which help us to maintain the biodiversity. Secondly, we also see that there is a government policy which is likely to be enrolled, that the ethanol blending, which is 10% at present, will be increased to 20% by 2025. And in that direction, a lot of policy decisions have been taken, and ethanol industry is also gearing up to a large extent. So from all these activities, what we can see is, yes, there is a lot of consciousness amongst all the stakeholders to have a green journey going forward. We have heard of electric cars coming very soon. Government has already rolled out the policy. Then water treatment plant, WTPs, reuse of water. The Nagpur Municipal Corporation has set an example that WTP, through WTP, the water is treated and it is given to the industry, which doesn't require such pure water. So all these efforts indicate that yes, our journey towards the green tech has started, and it will definitely give very good results in the coming years. Yes, Nikhil.
That's such an amazing view. We're talking about renewable energy, solar becoming probably the primary provider of energy for all the household and all the corporate needs. We're talking about reusing a lot of the water, primarily from households using wastewater plants and wastewater treatment ecosystem as a whole, which will go through a massive revamp in the coming few years. And you also spoke to the use of cleaner modes of transport, electrification of vehicles, as well as usage of green energy. So sustainably sourced fuels for powering transport ecosystems, which will not transition to electric, let's say, in the coming periods. So thank you, Mr. Rajendra, for painting that picture. If I may change gears a little bit and come back to Navneet. And one thing, Navneet, that I've seen your organization do is you've done really, really well when it comes to getting the head office, the construction office, and keeping the customer when it comes to building homes all on the same page. This is, again, has its own set of challenges. It's easier said than done. Especially when you have a BIM model, you have a design team who creates these really high definition models that have all the elements involved. But when you're on site, you may not really have access to a workstation and all the LOD 400, LOD 500 models that you've designed in the head office. At the same time, you have the client wondering that whether I selected gray as the color for my window frames or brown. So how do you manage all of this information flow seamlessly, and how does your organization really implement it in the United States where you've been operating?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is indeed one of the hardest parts. There are two major stakeholders for who we solve today. One is each customer, and the second is the subcontractors that we work with. And on the customer side, what we have seen is the higher the fidelity of the model, the more the visualization, the more detailed the visualization, the better decisions are made and earlier they are made. So as a company, we not only build extremely high definition models, LOD 400, 500 models, and exhaustively run clash detection. Our goal has been to make zero decisions on the job site. And in order to do that, we have evolved our own proprietary process. It's called IFC, issued for construction process, which is a phased approach for the entire life cycle of a project, from starting with grading and excavation, earthwork, foundation, framing, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, etc., roofing, tiling, countertops, everything all the way to the finish for any project that we work on. And in that process, the customer is deeply involved. They have their own deadlines. We have a full-blown construction management software platform, which manages essentially the numerous decisions, hundreds of decisions that the client needs to make. Our project management teams bring those decisions to the customer in a sequential way, which decisions must be made upfront. Our engineering teams then model these, identify any clashes, and it's sort of an iterative loop in each phase of the IFC process in order to make sure that the decisions are made timely and are well coordinated and thought through the implications. To facilitate this further, we also do high definition, high quality renderings, and those renderings, photorealistic renderings, further enable the customer to make decisions about ceiling drops, for example. Is probably the most commonly debated or discussed or most frustrating items when people find out on the job site if they haven't discovered it early on. So as a result of us modeling everything, and visualizing it, and it really enables customers to make those. The other thing that we do on top of it is augmented reality. So since we are a design to finish BIM shop, everything is available in our BIM models, and integrating with tools like Augment and some of the other tools that we are experimenting with, our customers are able to, right from the concept or design stage, start visualizing, walking into the building as if they're living there for pretty much, and visualizing. So the big theme here is visualizing on the customer side. And on the other side, as we are all very familiar, and some of the panelists talk about it, gaps in quantities or gaps in understanding of what's to be implemented from construction docs to actual site implementations. We have our own proprietary Livio mobile app, which is primarily a tool for our subcontractors or field workers, both available in English and Spanish, acknowledging the labor force in the US. And what it does is it makes these IFC drawings, which are directly generated from our BIM models for each contract or for each trade. So from our fully clash resolved, RFI resolved BIM model, we would create, for example, an IFC spec sheet or document for the plumber, which will be part of the plumbing contract. And these documents are available, and all other relevant documents are available as a part of the Livio mobile app to the customer or to the subcontractor, which allows them to instantly refer and ask questions with our project execution teams in real time and get answers right away. Because we have all of this model available, the third aspect of this is QA, QC, and really validating if we are every single day making the progress we wanted to make, and in coordination with and really doing exactly what we wanted to do. So we use tools like OpenSpace and tools like Oculavis, etc., which allow you to understand, overlay your BIM models on top of your field conditions day over day over day. So using that camera imagery on a real-time basis, we are able to compare daily the progress, the correctness, the completion, all aspects of the project. So these are the three different strategies we apply based on the audience and the problem that we are solving in order to essentially use BIM efficiently to make the process more efficient for everybody.
That's a very interesting take. You spoke about detailing the model to the highest degree so that you can pull out visualization that can help customers arrive at a decision much faster. And then also using IFC as a mechanism to ensure that you anticipate the questions that you will get from the subcontractors and provide them with information in advance. And not just that, but you're also ensuring that there's a real-time collaboration between the site office as well as the head office through issues, submittals, RFIs, and all the things that are available on platforms to really move from just BIM to connected BIM as a platform, which helps all the stakeholders be aware of what's happening on site in real time and really arrive at an as-built point. So really, really awesome stuff then.
Thank you.
For the next question, I'm going to ask Mr. Sandeep to do something slightly different. I'm going to ask him to wear the consulting hat that he's donned for so many years earlier. And I'm going to ask him to, so you've done a great job in terms of using BIM during the COVID time and really adopting and accelerating the adoption of BIM. If I were to ask you to don the consulting hat back again for a few more minutes, And with your permission, if you can give us any advice on how organizations who've not yet adopted BIM proceed to adopt BIM, what would that advice be?
Big question. Let me try and put it into two parts. One, at a philosophical level, organizations have to believe in it. Firstly, it is not a prank. It is not only visualization. It is a way of drawing, if not designing. I mean, if it is a way of drawing today that is there to stay. So firstly, believe in it. Secondly, I mean, from a consultancy point of view, you know, because you mentioned COVID, and I just thought I made a little note that I missed this point. We have realized one thing. I mean, me coming from a very manual drawing days, or designing and drawing days, I believed a lot in these group meetings and team meetings where all the stakeholders come around a large conference table and they throw around drawings or put up drawings on a screen, and they coordinate the whole thing out. One of the things we realized is that how much times the consultant have saved because of this whole BIM adoption, because those things were required in that context. Now, when I have a 3D visualization done to do all these coordination meetings, I'm sorry, from a developer side, I also joke with the consultants that we have continued, even when we have opened up now for almost 3-4 months, we have continued with our meetings on MS Teams platform and not across the conference room platform. The reason is, I don't miss that personal stuff. When you have BIM, you can visualize it so much nicely that you can solve it also across virtual meetings. What it has done is, for the consultant, it has saved them 1 and 1 hour, 2 hours of commute to my office. Please mind that. From Noida, that, or a lot of people outstations. I don't insist on personal meetings these days, very rarely. So what we do is we use that 1 + 1 hour of commute to actually have the meetings prolonged and actually solve more problems out there. From a consultancy point of view, like I said, there are 2-3 things. By the way, can I just, I made 2-3 points before I forget, just on a few issues that some of my predecessors mentioned. I think Navneet was talking about relationship between site and BIM. One of the things we realized, and I totally agree with him, that the whole effort to BIM, and this is also to answer your question, Nikhil, the whole effort we are putting up to get a project done on BIM should not be restricted to the design and engineering part only. It should obviously logically follow through to the construction stage. So we had a lot of brainstorming on how to do it. Should we appoint a third party who would sit there and actually start building the model? I mean, we have a virtual base model. Now we talked about time, we talked about cost. The issue of time is there because we can virtually model the schedule, and we can graphically present how the progress of a project to our management, to our investors, very, very nicely in BIM. So those are the next levels that we are trying to get into. So in some ways, we have insisted, like we have insisted with the consultants, that either you get BIM compatible, then you get my next project. We are also insisting that to our contractors, that you have to be BIM compatible to get our projects. Otherwise, we are not considering you, and we will hand you over a design, not in terms of drawings, but hard print drawings. वो थोड़ा sign करने का ज़रूरत होता है. That I understand, but that is not the end of the day. We will hand you over a Revit model, and then we have it built into the contracts now that the RA bills will actually be paid out of the Revit model and not measured on site. Now, I think that is another resource optimization that we are getting in. Every 6 months, yes, there will be a physical measurement taken, because you are kind of assuming that the Revit model is 100% correct, which may not be also. You have to keep that in mind. At least in our pilot projects, that is what is coming up. However, that is one way to handle the site and the use of the BIM model at site, is you make sure that they keep on updating, the contractors keep on updating the model in terms of what they are building, and they build out of the model, and the model being available to all of us through mediums like what Assemble, or even we are talking of BIM Collab now, or even in BIM 360 basically. So we have plenty of tools to actually check that, and the RA bills then get into a very, very smooth flow. There is no hold up for actual measurements every month that somebody goes and spends 7 days to actually take measurements, certify bills, and do something. The COVID situation, these
have to, Mr. Roy, sorry to interrupt, but we'll actually have to conclude this session. So if you could just summarize your points a little bit quickly so that we can, conclude this session and move on to the next panel as well.
No, I'm almost done. That's fine. I'm done. That's it.
Great. Mr. Nikhil, anything that you would want to just say on a concluding note?
Thank you so much, Sandeep. I was really, really engaged, really awesome conversations, and time really flies when you're having great conversations, right? So sorry we couldn't quite go beyond the 45 minutes, but really interesting perspectives all through the session today, right from how BIM has helped profitability in terms of time impact, better budgeting. We talked a little bit about how connected BIM, how we've evolved from just BIM to connected BIM, and how it's helping all the stakeholders stay on top of what's happening on site, and through that really help accelerate the decision-making process, deliver better quality, and even more customer satisfaction. Dr. Rajendra spoke to great lengths about how sustainability is here to stay and how it's helping really shape the India of, let's say, 2025 or 2030 as we look forward towards the future, right from the use of sustainable material sciences, to the usage of more greener energies or greener fuel sources, to even better mechanisms in terms of decisions for site selection, grading, optimization, and identifying how we can do how we can meet our development goals without really hurting the environment around us. So overall, really, really great conversations. I wanted to take a minute and really thank all the panelists for sharing their insights. Some great viewpoints coming through. With that, I'll conclude the session, Shriyal, and hand it over back to you.
Thank you so much. We had a few questions come in, but I totally agree that the session was so engaging and intriguing. So I would have to unfortunately skip those questions because I was just allowing the conversation to go on uninterrupted. But yes, thank you so much